Oh, nobody got to see the creepiness that just ensued with Matt George joining us, but I could see his little camera pop up and just this awful like horror movie of it getting closer and closer to him. Wow. Matt's rocking a Tiger Woods hat with a Raiders shirt. Okay.
Isn't that Tiger's favorite team?
Of course, it's Tiger's favorite team. Tiger has good taste, and he likes to be punished.
Whoa.
Whoa. Oh, you're talking about the Raiders. We thought you were talking about something else. That's fine. Let's bring in the host. Official welcome to the host of the Locked On Kings podcast that you can hear on our Odyssey platform. You can get it wherever you get podcasts from. He's our good friend Matt George here. You know what, KC? I'm out. I'll let you rock because you mentioned this. You mentioned this way back at 12:01. So, Matt, good luck, buddy.
Oh boy.
Well, look, I just have some questions. I just want to know what the context was. Because I hadn't got a chance to dive into the context. Okay, so maybe, there's more to the story. That's why we have a Matt George here where we can talk to him. That's why there is a Locked On Kings, so you can hear it more in depth. But we got him here, so I'm going to ask him.
I know where you're going.
Rolling through Twitter. Late last night, first thing I see, Locked On Kings podcast. Might have to check this out. Kings game, post game, all this other stuff. In big words, Tyrese Haliburton. King's best player?
Got him.
Mark?
I got him.
What?
You said in big words? Is that what you said?
Well, big font, I should say.
Well, it is rare for me to use big words, to be fair. No, I got you, Kenny. I got you, and I got a bunch of people, at least in my YouTube comment section, and a few people who sent me emails just based off that. I clickbaited people. I gave it a shot and tried a bit of a little clickbait title, and it worked. 2 minutes into the episode, I say no, he's not the best. De'Aaron Fox is the best, but Tyrese Haliburton was the best player on the court last night, in my opinion. So I hooked him and I reeled him in a little bit. The only thing is, I guess you just didn't listen to the first 2 minutes of the podcast, Kenny. I explained myself.
Crafty.
I mean, I
also wanted to get you on here because I know, look, when you get 1 million downloads, a lot of people are listening to the Locked On Kings podcast. But for those who didn't get the opportunity to, and they just saw your tweet, I wanted you to come on here and explain what was going on.
Oh, so you're always looking out for me, Kenny. You're always looking out for me here on 1320. I appreciate that. No, I was extremely impressed by Tyrese Haliburton last night, his all-around game. Stat line-wise, it's not the most I think it finished like 13, 5, and 5 and something like that in 20-something minutes, which is extremely efficient, but it doesn't necessarily jump off the page to you when you hear a conversation like, oh my God, is he the best player? But I was also playing with the fact that it's preseason basketball, and naturally we way overreact to positives or negatives. So I thought it fit the bill perfectly. Tyrese Haliburton plays better than De'Aaron Fox. Fox only scores 6 points. Hey, let's overreact and say this is Tyrese Haliburton's team now, and just let's get things going here during preseason. So I had fun with it, but no, I was very impressed by Tyrese. And again, I know it's preseason. They weren't taking on a full-strength Phoenix Suns team, but I was encouraged by the fact that the team didn't take a massive step back when De'Aaron Fox was struggling to score.
Yeah, what was the thing that stood out to you the most about Tyrese? You talked about the struggles there with De'Aaron, not being able to score, and normally, and I think De'Aaron has said as much this offseason, that's a death sentence for this team. Context is important. It's preseason game number 1. I don't recall seeing Chris Paul out there. I don't remember seeing Devin Booker out there. So this isn't exactly the Western Conference champion Phoenix Suns, but that ain't our problem. The team was able to kind of stay together after, with De'Aaron's rocky performance. But what stood out the most? You say Tyrese kind of held things together. He was the best player on the floor. What did you see from him where you're like, oh man, this is the guy. He's going to take a step this year?
Just like an all-around confidence. And I actually asked Luke Walton about this after the game, and I was hoping we'd get a chance to talk to Tyrese because I wanted to ask him about this too. You remember his first preseason game against the Portland Trailblazers last year, how he admitted after the game, like the stage was kind of big and he got lost in the moment a little bit. He was playing against, I think it was the Blazers, so he was playing against Dame and these guys that he's looked up to for a long time. And he just didn't look necessarily comfortable. Now, as preseason went on, he got more and more comfortable and he started the season playing very well for the Kings. This year, he looks like it doesn't look like a second-year player. It looks like a man who's been, I mean, he's put on weight clearly with his body. He's playing just an all-around better game of basketball just based off of this one game that we saw. I was also paying attention a little bit because he said that he had, what was it, a foot injury or something, like a small little minor thing. He said it wasn't that big of a deal, but it got brought up in training camp. So wanted to pay attention to that too. But I was just impressed by his all-around game and the fact that, like, if we're going to see a lot of Fox and Haliburton playing together, we've talked about the possibility of playing De'Aaron Fox off the ball. And there are opportunities for when Fox isn't playing well or isn't scoring and he's playing off the ball for guys like Tyrese or Davion Mitchell to step up. And there was one moment in particular in the third quarter that just made me say, okay, that's like, we knew Tyrese had the ability to distribute, but he attacks the basket, gets by one defender, draws in three, and somehow sees, I don't know how the hell he saw it, but sees Buddy Hield in the corner in front of the Kings bench with two like centers blocking his way, throws like an over-the-shoulder kick-out pass right to Buddy, easy catch-and-shoot finish. Like it was an elite play to me to see out of a second-year player who can be a primary distributor, but that wasn't his role with the Kings last year. So that really jumped out to me.
We haven't talked about it much at all here on the show today, but, just want to check the pulse. And I don't think we talked about it because we're not concerned about it. De'Aaron Fox didn't look good last night, but that's nothing, correct?
Yeah, and I don't recall him looking very good in too many preseasons, period. I remember last preseason, we were a little concerned with the fact that he was taking a lot of three-pointers, a high volume of threes, and they weren't dropping. And I remember interacting with fans saying, like, look, this is when you want him to miss all these threes. Like, this is when you want him to take these and figure it out. And lo and behold, he had one of his best three-point shooting seasons. Maybe not percentage-wise. I actually have to look at that. But in terms of the volume of threes that he shot, the confidence at which he shot the three-pointer, that was what excited me the most about how he was playing on the perimeter last season, to where teams started to respect it. But I remember in preseason him trying to figure that out and shots weren't falling. So De'Aaron is still very much the 25 or 26 plus points per game scorer that he was last year for the Kings. He's going to be that and then some, I think, this season. This is still very much his team. Luke Walton still calls him the head of the snake, and rightfully so. Even if he has 4 bad preseason games, there's no doubt in my mind that come the regular season, Fox is going to be the leader for this Kings team. And as good as Tyrese is, as good as Davion Mitchell hopefully is, and even if the rest of the team is playing fantastic basketball, at least we saw last night that Fox not playing well is not going to drag this team down. But make no mistake about it, if the Kings want a chance of making the playoffs, De'Aaron Fox has to be the leader of this team. They're not good enough without him.
Absolutely.
Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, with us here on D-Lo and KC on ESPN 1320. What did you make of all the different lineups we saw out there, particularly the 3-guard lineups?
Hey, depth is a wonderful thing, right? And it's going to be interesting to see, like, Walton knows what he's doing, because he says, oh, don't read too far into the lineups that I put out there and the starting lineup that I put out there, and proceeds to put out one of the maybe most ideal starting fives in Fox, Haliburton, Harrison Barnes at the 3, which I know you guys love. And hey, no coincidence that Harrison Barnes playing the 3 and he got off to the great start that he got off to. I mean, no surprise there, led the Kings in scoring. And that's what he was doing at the beginning of last season, to your guys' point. So he plays very well there. Marvin Bagley, I've talked on this show before. I'm hesitant to give him a starting spot unless he earns it in camp. And he got an opportunity to show what he could do as a stretch 4. He didn't shoot. I think he only shot like 1 of 4 from 3-point range, but he got like 3 or 4 really good looks and still shot a very efficient field goal percentage with the opportunities that he got on the inside. It didn't look like he and Rashawn Holmes were too congested, which was exciting to see in the time that they played together. And I thought it was interesting that with Luke Walton's rotations, a lot of the times Bagley and Holmes would come into the game together or would come out of the game at the same time. They were playing together primarily, which I thought was pretty cool. But the 3-guard lineups, we saw a lot of different combinations, got only a very small stretch of Fox, Haliburton, and Mitchell in the third quarter. And the first play, I think, was a Mitchell forced turnover leading to one of the quickest fast breaks I've ever seen. Just Fox outlet pass to Haliburton for a dunk, I believe. So, and then seeing Terrence Davis work his way in, seeing Buddy Hield as a primary off the bench role, which I absolutely love. He still managed to take his high volume of threes. Just goes to show, it doesn't matter if you're a starter or not, you're still going to get your shots up, buddy. So I like it. I liked what I saw, and I'm interested to see over the course of these final 3 preseason games what irons itself out is there a selection made between like a Tristan Thompson and Alex Len, who both played last night? And I thought both played very, very well. Does one of them shine above the other? Because I highly doubt that you're going to be playing both of those guys on a nightly basis.
We talked at length on the show earlier about Buddy Hield, and I'm not even getting into all this stuff that we were talking about as far as the shooting and elite stuff.
We don't have enough time left in the show to bring that conversation back.
But ironically enough, myself and Damian, we both agreed that we didn't see an issue with pretty much anything Buddy Hield did last night. I think that with his role coming off the bench of 5 for 15, that's something that's much more digestible than if your starting shooting guard is doing that every night for a number of different reasons. Because of number one, he's a hired gun, so to speak. He's out there to get buckets. Number two, I fully believe 5 for 15 isn't going to be what he shoots every night. There's going to be nights where he's coming off the bench. He'll give you 7 for 15 or 8 for 13 or something like that. And you'll have some hot nights. So if you have that off the bench, it just creates a completely different dynamic to being able to kind of focus more so on the strengths of his game as opposed to the things that he doesn't do well. Did you see the same thing last night with Buddy Hield?
I did, and so did Luke Walton. I think Luke said after the game, he said, like, with the looks that Buddy got, if he gets those looks consistently, he's going to score 20 points. And now he's not saying Buddy's going to average 20 points a night, but with the amount of looks that Buddy got, good looks last night, looks that he got in rhythm, some of them just weren't falling. Hey, it's your first preseason game. The Kings were thrilled, it sounds like, with the shot selection of Buddy. I don't really remember him, and I could have missed it, but I don't remember him forcing up any shots like
there's a couple of rough ones out there.
Okay,
so like we were looking at him earlier. Like there's a couple, but they're rough in the context of like he had a lot of open shots that he just missed. He had a couple that he made too, but there are some. If we just label them Buddy shots.
Yeah,
like there are a couple of them. It's not like this was a clean game, and I know Luke was talking about that in the post game, Matt, where we're happy with the shot selection and then the flow and all that stuff, and it's like, all right, cool. And then we were watching it back this morning, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Yo, Buddy took some crazy shots last night.
I really don't remember that. And maybe it was just the online feed that I was watching and wasn't paying close enough attention. I don't remember like egregious, but like, cause I could tell you.
I mean, they're not horrible. But there are some deep contested threes. Like there is a handful out there where it's like, Buddy.
But you know what? I think what comes into play here is with him coming off the bench, there isn't as much of a spotlight on the things that he's doing out there on the court. There's some things that we could just throw away from our memory. Like, it's the backup shooting guard taking a ill-advised shot. Tyrese will be back in the game soon. No big deal.
Truth be told, and I wonder if it stood out to you guys, like the main thing that stood out to me about Buddy Hield last night really didn't have too much to do with him. It was who he was playing with. Like Buddy played a lot with Davion Mitchell last night with that second unit, which we've talked about, the possibility of that being a combination. And in addition to that, fans have been asking for this for a while, and Luke Walton seems to be implementing it. He was staggering De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton a good amount too. So Buddy spent a good amount of time playing with De'Aaron still. He spent a good amount of time playing with Tyrese, but the majority of the time he shared the backcourt with Davion Mitchell. That stood out to me. I don't know if you guys noticed that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be fair because there are a lot of people watching and a lot of people listening. He took 15 shots. There's like 3 of them. That you just kind of go, oh. I mean, and again, they're not awful, but they're still like, man, he shot it like the Kings. He shot it from like a foot away from the logo while being guarded.
Good shot. Good shot.
Buddy, what is that? But he did have a lot of open looks. It looked like they were actually running plays for him to get shots last night. And so I'm curious is that the call? Like, all right, buddy, you and Davion, you're up. I mean, we've talked a lot about who'd be the 6th man. I know you just mentioned this. Well, we got 2 of them, Buddy and Davion going in at the same time. Davion perhaps helps out with Buddy's defensive shortcomings a little bit. And then it's like, all right, buddy, we're going to run some plays for you. Go out there and fire. He took a shot 10 seconds after getting off the bench. And I thought that was one of the best shots that he took. It was a fake at the top and a step in. Just above the free throw line circle, and it just fell short.
The weapon that Buddy Hield can be, though, if he comes into the game with the volume microwave type shooting that he's provided before. Now that kind of took a dip last season compared to years past, but if Buddy comes into a game with the second unit after the first unit, let's say sustains for 6 to 7 minutes or takes a small lead or even falls behind early, Buddy Hield has the ability to single-handedly extend a lead or close a gap within a couple of minutes of him just being on the floor. And if he's going to be playing with Davion Mitchell, the elite shooting is going to be his number one calling card. It's if you're out here, I mean, we need you to space the floor. We need you to hit some shots and let Davion help you out a little bit on the defensive end. But I know Buddy's not just saying he's a one-trick pony, even if many believe he is. He's trying to do more, communicate, and we saw that last season, even if it doesn't always result in success. And I also noticed too, very little time. In fact, I don't remember. There probably was. I just missed it. Like Buddy Hield and Marvin Bagley being on the floor at the same time. Didn't see a lot of that, which I thought was an absolute plus. No disrespect to the two of them, but we know how bad that lineup was with the two of them in defensively last season. So that stood out to me. And I wonder how content Buddy will be with a bench role if it means that he can still get his shots up, get his opportunity, and potentially play himself into a position where the Kings use him as part of their closing lineup if he is playing to the caliber that they need. Or let's say they're down by a couple of possessions with only 30 to 45 seconds left. You best believe Buddy Hield's in that game to get you some 3-pointers and get you back into the game quickly. So Buddy is still very much an asset, whether he's a starter or coming off the bench, regardless of how much money he's being paid.
You know, this unit that Buddy Hield was a part of, this bench unit, it really stood out to me, and it really impressed me and gave me a feeling that the Kings it reaffirmed that I think the Kings are going to win a good amount of games this year. And there's going to be some nights where that bench just, I don't want to say overpower, like I don't want to do too much, but I think what their bench will be able to do to another team's second unit, they're going to be better a lot of nights. And that's going to keep them in games. That's going to keep the starters fresh. That's going to allow the starters to not feel the pressure to have to come in and win a game by themselves. I was really impressed. And when I talk about the bench, I mean Davion, Buddy, Terrence Davis, Mo Harkless, Tristan Thompson, even Alex Len played really well. The depth on this team, on this roster, I think that is going to be something that we'll look back as the season goes along and says, hey, this bench, if it wasn't for them, maybe they wouldn't have won that game last night, or maybe, they wouldn't have been able to win 3 out of the last 5 or whatever the case may be, because the bench is really stepping up. I think we saw a little bit of that last night.
But Kenny, how about the bench challenging the starters in a couple different ways? I mean, if you have Buddy Hield coming off the bench, Buddy Hield has been a starter for a lot of games here in Sacramento. You best believe he's chomping for the bit if Tyrese Haliburton isn't playing well. Right. Tristan Thompson's coming from a championship, or has been on a championship team in Cleveland. You best believe he'd be putting pressure on Marvin Bagley in this situation, potentially to play the 4. Davion Mitchell was a NCAA champion at Baylor. He wants to get into the starting lineup. And it's not just that. What happens when the Kings starters get off to a bad start? The bench gets them back into the game or even builds up a lead. Now it's on you starters. Like, we did all the hard work for you. We fought to get you back into this game. You damn well better secure this victory, or at least keep us in this game, regardless of what kind of talent you're going up against in their starting lineup. Like, I'm interested to see, you're 100% right with the depth and how they can work with each other, and how it's not really going to be nearly as significant of a drop off as it was last season when Fox and Haliburton and the King starters would come out of the game. I'm interested to see, though, as the season goes on, how the bench challenges the starters, when the bench does what needs to be done, and now it's on the starters to get a fire lit under them and respond to the effort that their backups provided for them to give them an opportunity to win.
Matt, we posted the question over on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ESPN1320, about what part of the game last night you enjoyed the most. Tyrese won, running away. But the options were Tyrese, Davion, the defense, and the toughness. Finishing second was the toughness. And, I put the toughness note in there and the defensive note in there because those are things that we don't really see often as Kings fans. And they were a big emphasis here headed into this season and through this offseason. What did you make of the Alex Lenz last night and how physical he was, with the Kings winning the rebounding battle? And I know that was a point of conversation last night from Luke and some of the guys who spoke to the media. What did you take away from, you mentioned Alex Len a minute ago, and the toughness that this team showed their first time out together?
Truth be told, I was watching the game by myself, so I absolutely talked to myself like a loser last night. But I found myself like leaning back in my chair and putting my arms behind my head and going, "Man, I could get used to this. Like I could get used to it. The way that they played last night." Now I question.
I can see that visual, like without even a problem. I can see it.
Talking to my cat and
like just, a bird somewhere around flying. Yeah, I see it.
A bird.
My social life is about as good as the Kings playoff chances last 15 years.
You have you have a tiny baby. That's allowed.
That's a good point. And he doesn't even want to hang out with me. I helped bring the kid into the world. He's like, I'd rather hang with mom. But
he's
anyway,
maturing quickly.
Yeah, he's smart. He has his mom's genes. So yeah, but I felt like I could get used to it. Right now, I'm not taking it for granted yet, and there are going to be times I'm sure through the season where it's like, oh, Davion Mitchell, this is just what he does. No, it's just what he does. But make sure you appreciate it because the Kings haven't had it for 15 straight seasons, type thing. But in terms of Alex Len, like this is why I liked Alex so much in the 15 or so games that he played for the Kings a couple of seasons ago, and I saw these comparisons online, and I know it was a little bit of fun taking shots at Hassan Whiteside, but you could see the difference in Alex Len coming into the game and the immediate impact that he would make in the paint, defensively. My favorite part about Alex Len's game, which is something that you would think would be so common and fundamental in the modern NBA, but it's not, is the great screens that he sets. And I wish Marvin Bagley and Rashawn Holmes would watch him set screens and take notes. Now, I do realize Alex Len's body type is a little bit different from those two guys, but the screens that Alex Len sets, I could just watch all day, and you see it actually creates separation for the guards, which they can do something with when you have the speed of De'Aaron Fox or the IQ of Tyrese Haliburton. So I love Alex Len. Like I talked about a little bit earlier, I don't know if he plays over Tristan Thompson. And I think both of them within their first 30 to 40 seconds in the game, both of them got an offensive rebound. Hey, sweet. Second chance opportunities for the Sacramento Kings. They haven't gotten that too much unless it's a long rebound coming off the rim and a perimeter board. So the immediate impact was something that was nice to see and something that is easy to get used to and probably easy to take for granted. And I hope at no point I personally take that for granted this season. But it's the same problem for Luke Walton of where do these guys play? When do these guys play? Because not everybody can play. You don't have minutes for everyone. So is it matchup based? Is it who's playing well in practice? I'm very interested to follow Luke Walton's rotations all season long.
Yeah,
I was talking about, earlier in the show, I just feel like Tristan Thompson has to play, and this is no knock on Alex Len, because like you said, I thought he played well last night, and it's not going to be a situation where he goes games without playing. But when you talk about a rotation, I feel like you got to find room for Tristan. I love the energy that he brings, the rebounding that he brings is sorely missed on that side of the bat. Well, he's a great offensive rebounder as well, but I'm thinking more so on the defensive end. And when you have somebody that has assumed the leader role and is the vocal leader, and he's somebody that in the locker room they kind of look to, I feel like that guy has to be able to walk it out there on the court too. And I mentioned to Damian earlier, there ain't no Herb Williams or Tree Rollins or Robert Parrish on the Bulls going on here. If you're going to be a leader, like I said, you got to be able to walk it. To walk it, you got to get the playing time. So I think Tristan should be kind of, I don't want to say locked in, but he should be an integral part in this regular rotation for Luke Walton.
Oh, I completely agree, just based off of his experience alone. And Luke Walton, over his last 2 seasons, he's talked a lot about trust. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that, but he's talked about, I remember when Kyle Guy was playing well last season, it's like, oh, he's gaining trust, he's earning trust. He talked about that with some of the new players coming in. When Terrence Davis was playing well, when Chimezie Metu was playing well, oh, he's starting to earn our trust. Tristan Thompson is a guy that Luke Walton clearly trusts, even if he's never coached him before, because they've been teammates. They've played together in Cleveland. They have the respect there. And he knows what he's going to get out of Tristan. Everybody knows what they're going to get out of Tristan Thompson. That's maybe the best part about Tristan Thompson. Some would say, oh, he's predictable. For a team like Sacramento, who struggles with horrific inconsistency for over a decade, having someone that you can trust to do the same thing, even if it's not the most sexy thing on the planet on a nightly basis, that's extremely valuable for a Kings lineup in the minutes that he provides. So I absolutely agree with you. I think as much as I like Alex Len, if there's a choice between the two, the edge goes to Tristan Thompson right now over Len. I think he just makes more sense. with certain lineups and with certain rotations. I don't know how much I necessarily believe in Tristan's ability to be a starter on this team. And Kenny, I don't think you said that. Like, I don't know if he's starting 4. He's certainly not starting over Rashawn Holmes unless Holmes gets hurt, knock on wood. So it's going to be a maybe 15 minutes per night bench role. But during those 15 minutes, is he coming in and doing what he does best, being a physical presence, helping on defense, securing offensive and defensive rebounds? If it is, it's an A+ for me, an absolute A+. That's all I need from the man, and the leadership in the locker room, which we saw. And we got that fun moment after the game, right, of him interrupting Davion Mitchell. He's 2 for 2 and interrupting little press conference things, but this one was live in the arena with Scott Moak, which I thought was fun. So I like Tristan a lot.
What are some of the negatives from last night? Anything stand out to you where it's like, gotta be better here?
A couple things with Marvin Bagley, and I'm really not trying to be nitpicky because overall I was more happy with Marvin than I was disappointed. There are a couple possessions defensively where I could tell Marvin was on an island. Like it was when he had to switch onto some guards and he just kind of stand there with his arms out and kind of look around like, someone communicate with me. Am I supposed to take ball or am I supposed to take this guard who's cutting to the basket? So I saw that a couple of times, which you would hope a 4th-year player, even if he's struggled to stay healthy and get on the floor that way, you would hope a 4th-year player is starting to grasp that defensively. So that stood out. But at the same time, too, there was a play in the third quarter where he actually got scored on, but he switched on to a guard. It might have been Cameron Payne or something. I can't remember. And Cameron tries to get by him twice, and both times Bagley uses that lateral quickness that we've talked about to horizontal quickness to quickly just stop him and cut him off from the basket. He tries again, cuts him off again, results in a step back corner 3. Bagley contests, the shot goes in. I have no gripes with Marvin Bagley in a possession like that. Like, he just hit a good shot. He had one play to step back to create separation to shoot over the top of you, and he happened to make the shot. But you stopped a quicker guard from getting by you on a mismatch. Like, I love that from Marvin. And then offensively, there were still some moments of him being a little tunnel visioned. And I need more rebounding out of Marvin. I need more rebounding out of everybody, but I just need more rebounding. He finished with like 5 boards in 20 something minutes when he could easily have like 7 or 8, I think, in that time, if he's aggressively crashing the boards. Now, at the same time, too, he's playing a little bit more on the perimeter than maybe he has in years past. So maybe that has an effect on things, but that plus the turnovers in general is me being nitpicky. But I said this on the podcast, truthfully, like 90 to 95% of last night was positive for me. Not overreaction positive, like Tyrese Haliburton is the best player on the Kings. But I left last night going, okay, I'm even more optimistic. I see what they're doing. I want to see if it's sustainable. That's how I felt last night, really, about everybody.
Davion Mitchell, I said, to me at least, he was as advertised last 100%. Night. I thought that his energy, the way he picked up the ball. Look, Matt, I made the argument earlier. Davion Mitchell is changing the NBA, not just the Kings.
That was his clickbait right there.
Yeah. Because
I like
the time when Elfrid Payton came into the game, Davion picked him up full court, locked him up, forced him into a turnover or whatever the case may be. All of a sudden, Davion Mitchell gets the ball to bring it up court. Elfrid Payton is picking him up full court. And I was like, oh, that's what we're doing right now in the preseason. Let's go. And I just love the energy that he brought, specifically, obviously, for the Sacramento Kings. And that's part of that second unit that I'm really interested in seeing how they play out, because Davion's defense, hey, man, I know it's a cliche. I know a lot of people, have fun with it. I think the effort that he brings on the defensive end is contagious. I think it's something that these guys are feeding off of, and they want to get in on it. They want to be Davion Mitchell in some respects and get that type of adulation and that love. So I thought he was as advertised last night. What'd you see from him?
Kenny, I found myself doing the Kenny Caraway last night, also alone watching the game by myself, but him being or picking up full court defensively. And I felt a little bit the Kerry Caraway vibe talking about that, and I know the fans felt it as well. There was no sound, so I don't know how they reacted, but I saw the standing ovations, and I heard G-Man commenting on it on the radio broadcast too. So fans are going to love that, and I can't wait to see that with like a packed building on opening night against Utah when he's doing that to a guy like Donovan Mitchell or Mike Conley or something like that. But I mean, this might be clickbait, but I just thought of this. Like, is Donovan or Davion already like a top 3 most reliable King? Like, just thinking about what he provides, what we expect him to provide. And on every single outing, one preseason game and summer league, granted, and California Classic, but on every single outing, he has done exactly what we thought and have been told he was going to do since he was drafted. Every single game. It's the same effort, the same intensity, the same energy. Now, I still need to see it against top quality talent with major minutes in a meaningful game to say that, okay, this is who he is as an NBA player. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But I mean, I talked about it a little bit earlier, the Kings and their inconsistencies over the years. Davion has been nothing but consistent every single game that he's played in a Kings uniform so far.
Which is one. I just want to point that out. It's one.
There Kings in the front of the summer league uniforms, Damian. They might have been reversible, but there was Kings on the front of it. So
it's true. It's damn true.
And he got a trophy out of it. 2-time summer league champions, only team to do that ever. So hey,
MVP.
Yeah, well, Peyton Pritchard knows.
MVP.
But yeah, to answer your question, Kenny, yeah, I'm extremely impressed by him. Very excited by him. He creates nightmares for other teams. You can see immediately like turnovers and the franticness on offensive opponents when he comes into the game. It just picks up a level. Even if he doesn't deflect anything or force a steal, him just being out there seems to cause disruption with the way that he plays. So I couldn't be happier with what I've seen out of Davion so far, and I can't wait to see it against CJ and Dame on opening night in Portland.
And before we get there, what do you want to see tomorrow?
A better ability to take care of the basketball.
Yeah.
I guess is the biggest nitpicky thing.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the same, like is what we saw last night sustainable? Now I'm also kind of interested in the starting lineup, but at the same time, not, because I don't know. I expect the same starting five. We'll have to wait and see, but is what they did against the Phoenix Suns, was that kind of fluky? Because if they go out and completely lay an egg against the LA Clippers and look very different defensively with the intensity and energy that they looked in that game, even if De'Aaron Fox suddenly has a good game, but everybody else kind of struggles a little bit, suddenly we're here on ESPN 1320, D'Lo and KC going, which one's the anomaly? Was the one against Phoenix the anomaly, or was the one in LA the anomaly? So honestly, more of the same. Even if it results in a loss, who cares? It's preseason. But more of the same and taking care of the basketball, those are my biggest wish list items.
Consistency, right? Consistency. That's what we want to see. We want to see consistency in the group, just as we've seen with the Locked On Kings podcast, which is available here on Odyssey. I know Locked On has launched a YouTube channel, so the crew over there on youtube.com/ESPN1320 can go see the Locked On Kings podcast channel. Always great content, Matt. Always a great conversation. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Can't wait, guys. I'll be here.
Indeed.